Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mamdani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different...
If you've watched the Democratic Party start to lean uncomfortably close to socialist ideals, it's like watching a friend ignore a "don't text your ex" warning in real time. Bill Maher just dropped a massive reality check, and this time AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Zoran Mamdani are directly in the splash zone. Maher isn't just venting. He's staging a high-stakes political intervention. A lifelong Democrat, Maher now sounds like the only sober person at the party, watching his colleagues down shots of radical policy at 2 a.m. He's looking at AOC and her new socialist protege, Mamdani, practically screaming for them to pull back before the entire party hits a wall. "Stop," he pleads. "For the sake of winning an election, just stop." But they aren't listening. Instead, they're digging in. AOC recently hit back at her critics, Maher included, using the classic "you just haven't met him yet" defense. It's the ultimate political Tinder move. Swipe right on socialism and pray the reality matches the profile. But here's the kicker. AOC is suddenly preaching about open minds, yet rarely shows that same curiosity toward conservatives or Trump supporters. This sudden pivot to selective empathy has even the most loyal moderates in her party watching with total disbelief.
You say to the skeptics, though, in the party, or want to keep him at arm's distance, some who have some problems with him, even some fellow New Yorkers in the swing districts outside the city.
Get to know him. Get to know him. You know, this is not about having any kind of hard line. I think that if anybody is skeptical, I would say get to know him. And once you get into a room with him, kick the tires yourself and make your own assessment instead of just kind of making assessments from what you may see on television. If you have the ability to meet someone in person, you should meet them before you...
Maher is pulling zero punches, and he goes straight for the ultimate comparison. The glowing lights of capitalist South Korea versus the total darkness of socialist North Korea. One side is a global powerhouse. The other looks like a failed utility bill. Then he points to Venezuela, once a crown jewel of South America. Now a cautionary tale of what happens when 21st century socialism triggers economic freefall and mass migration. His point is chilling. Socialism doesn't suddenly become viable just because you're in a trendy New York zip code. Meanwhile, Mamdani isn't selling fairy tales. He's young, energetic, and pushing the exact policies that have historically bankrupted nations. Maher is looking around the room asking, is anyone else seeing the cliff we're driving toward? While AOC tells us to go meet him, Maher says we should go meet history, because history shows that socialism usually ends in a spectacular crash. He then turns his sights on Bernie Sanders. For decades, Bernie has pushed for a national healthcare takeover, but when his own home state of Vermont, a tiny fraction of the US population, tried to launch it, the plan folded almost instantly. If Vermont couldn't handle the math, why on earth does anyone think New York can?
I know the kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland, but then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, home.
The hammer keeps falling. Maher is making it clear. Bernie, AOC, and Mamdani aren't traditional Democrats. They are democratic socialists, a completely different political species. And the thing is, they aren't hiding it. They are proud of the label, offering no apologies and no excuses for the radical shift they represent.
Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century, a mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
The danger, according to Maher, is that the average voter doesn't realize how deep the rebranding goes. But his most devastating observation is this: the very leaders attacking capitalism are the ones who have mastered it to become famous. Bernie's bestsellers, AOC's global brand, their massive digital footprints. None of that platform exists under the real socialism they promote. In a truly socialist regime, you don't get to be a celebrity by being a critic. You don't get a platform to complain. The system silences the critique, and the critic simply disappears from the conversation.
This election is taking place when we have an administration in Washington which every day is moving us toward an authoritarian society.
This is America, New York City. Don't let them tell you any different. Don't let them tell you that we are the exception. We are the rule. And we set the bar for America. I'm talking to you, Donald Trump.
Let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. New York is not for sale.
This is the hypocrisy that Maher finds truly exhausting. The loudest voices claiming capitalism is broken are the ones currently winning the game. Now, Maher isn't saying capitalism is perfect. He admits it's messy and often unfair. But compared to socialism's near-perfect track record of failure, capitalism is the reliable partner who actually pays the mortgage while the other one just brings chaos. He then brings up Abigail Spanberger, the Virginia representative who warned that the socialist label is toxic to voters. Her advice was simple: stop the radical talk if you want to actually win. And she proved it by winning her seat without any radical slogans. Did the leadership listen? Not a chance. They threw her winning strategy in the trash. This is where Maher gives that disappointed father look. The party isn't being led by the middle. It's being hijacked by the fringe. These voices represent Twitter, not the actual voting public, and running on a radical agenda isn't bold leadership. It's a high-stakes game of political Russian roulette, where most of the chambers are loaded.
Now, Mamdani seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, "If the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again." Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, ladies?
The most haunting part is the silence from the moderate majority. That silence isn't stay-out-of-it neutrality. It's a green light for the extremes to take over. When a party won't set boundaries, the fringe becomes the identity. The data proves it. In 2024, every Democrat who won in a Trump-leaning district was a moderate. Not one was a socialist. Even the New York Times, hardly a conservative outlet, admitted the middle path is the only way to win. But the DNC ignored the data, threw the advice into a blender, and drank a chaos smoothie. They aren't just distancing themselves from capitalism. They're basically sending you up. Text to socialism in the middle of the night.
At least the party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center.
Maher's warning is simple. Choosing ideology over electability is a death sentence for a political party. He points out that the biggest losses happen when the leadership prioritizes woke aesthetics and symbolic crusades over the bread-and-butter issues that actual people care about.
The New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win. And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office.
Voters don't want a political performance for TikTok. They want a party that understands reality isn't a social media feed. Maher argues that most Americans, left, right, and center, just want stability and solutions, not a revolution. Yet the DNC acts like the person who ignores every red flag and then wonders why their relationships are so toxic. Maher's final point is massive. Socialism doesn't just fail. It collapses. It's not a slow fade. It's a hard landing involving shortages, inflation, and millions of people fleeing for their lives, just like in Venezuela. When AOC claims her vision is the future, Maher warns that if she's right, the future isn't prosperity. It's a total breakdown. He looks back at Vermont one last time. On paper, Green Mountain Care sounded like a dream. In practice, it was a nightmare of tax hikes and economic risk that the governor had to kill before it even started. If it failed in a small, supportive state, how is it supposed to survive the most expensive city on earth?
Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar. Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week.
Maher's closing argument is brutal. Democratic socialism is a catfish profile. It looks great in the airbrushed photos, but the real-world meeting is a disaster. It always ends in an economic crisis. As he wraps up, Maher doubles down on the message. America wants common sense and competence, not ideological purity. If the Democrats want to win in 2028, they have to stop chasing the fringe and start talking to the people who actually decide elections. But will they change course, or will they keep swiping right on a disaster? Only time will tell. That's our breakdown for today. If you found this insightful, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and tell me in the comments. Is the Democratic Party heading for a total shift? Or is this just a temporary detour? Let me know your thoughts below.